The Rugby Championship is done and dusted for another year, so let's get into all the good and bad that came from it. Obviously 2023, Rugby World Cup year, a massive year in the scope of things, and probably one of those years where the Rugby Championship is a little less important. You would much rather be the winner of the Rugby World Cup than the winner of the Rugby Championship. So going into this, I think there was a lot of questions about teams and I guess the makeup of what teams were going to look like, who was going to play, game time, all of that. Preparation, really. As Eddie Jones said it, it's a pre-season for the World Cup. As Rugby Championships go, it's probably the least important as a Rugby World Cycle year. Saying that, obviously, going into a Rugby World Cup, it is nice to be going in with some form and some good rugby, knowing what you do works. So it was important for all four teams to see where they were at, to get the level, and then to work out what was working and not working. And for some of those teams, we found out what was working. For some of those teams, it was really what's not working. Australia. But let's start with the top. New Zealand, All Blacks kicked it off, won the Rugby Championship and the Bledisloe Slow, going 3 from 3 in really dominant performances. All up, they averaged 38 points per game while only conceding at 13 points per game. And I think that will bring where the most excitement comes in to this team is the 13 points per game they're allowing. Their defence has stepped up a notch since last year. Only conceded 12 against Argentina, then the 20 against South Africa, and finally the 7 against the Wallabies. So I think they'll be really happy with that. New Zealand's always a good team that can attack, but especially in the Ireland series, when we look back, defensively was where we were getting beaten. Really good defensive performance from the All Blacks. But saying that, averaging 38 points per game against those three other teams is pretty impressive. And they looked on fire with attack, a really couple of key weapons. The wingers absolutely backing up their selections. Amoni Natawa, obviously, in that first game against Argentina was huge. And then Mark Talia and Will Jordan really taking over in the previous two games. Will Jordan kind of having, I'm going to say this, and it might be a little bit controversial, but a breakout year with the All Blacks in terms of his playmaking ability. Like, he's always been a finisher, always got that ability. I just saw, especially in that Wallabies game, he moved into first receiver a lot and was doing those things a fullback does, which gives a lot of options for the All Blacks. A couple other standouts for me for the All Blacks, obviously Shannon Frizzell, the game against South Africa, kind of his coming of age, which is unfortunate that he is now leaving and heading overseas next year, but a really good performance from him, and he backed it up in the Australian game as well. I think cemented that 6 jersey. It allows the All Blacks to use those 3 locks as locks. Talking about those locks, Scott Barrett had probably his best Rugby Championship of his career. The tackle on Tate McDermott last night was incredible, but his performances as a whole have just been incredible. And I think he's taken a really big step with the Crusaders, obviously being captain and everything now, and just that leadership, you can just see he's just showing the confidence he has and putting it out on the field. Another 2 players, one that is just been there and done it and is so consistent, that's Aaron Smith. Just his performance, his play, it's just incredible at his age that he's still able to do what he's able to do. Just the longevity, just the style of play. Against the Wallabies, I thought he was fantastic on defence, making a lot of tackles, which I don't think is his highlight, his strength, should I say. He is a passer who sets up the team or the All Blacks, but he's been doing that fantastically. I think it's one of those losses we're just thinking, with age, we've got plenty of halfbacks, but he's shown his true class this Rugby Championship, and I think it's going to be hard just to replace him. Saying that, we saw maybe the future in Cam Roigard. Really like what we saw from him coming onto the field. He wasn't afraid to take those little nips that he has and shoot and just have a go at it. And I think actually impressed me more than Finlay Christie has in those first 2 games. Nothing against Christie. We know Christie can do a job. I just think Roigard's time may be now. Moving on to South Africa. 2 from 3, obviously the loss to New Zealand, and just managed to pull out a win last night against the spirited Los Pumas. So, I don't really know what to make of the Springbok team. They are obviously the defending champions, and they play really well at Rugby World Cups. It's an ageing team, we know that, and they've pretty much got a very similar side to what they had 4 years ago. It's going to be really interesting. I'm intrigued to see how they develop going into the Rugby World Cup and into those pool stages. They haven't played good rugby Obviously, the first game against the Wallabies they did, but those last two games I just haven't seen a lot of good Springbok rugby, as we say in the podcast. So I think what this has made clear to me, this Rugby Championship, is Andre Pollard is vital for the Springboks. As much as Manny Lebok, has shown flashes in that first game and then had a good try yesterday, it's just, to me, it shows how much Andre Pollard is needed. And I just think they're missing that at the moment, that key, Springbok player, first five, who knows what the game plan is and ticking all those boxes at the moment. They did score 85 points all up in the Rugby Championship, 27 per game, and conceded 68, which is about 23 per game. So, yeah, defense was really fantastic against Argentina. Rewatching that back was incredible to see. And we know they can defend, so they'll be disappointed with the 30 points they led in against the All Blacks. It does have me worried that those teams, those top echelon teams, the Ireland, France, New Zealand, could probably beat these South African teams. Saying that, on their day, they can definitely beat anyone. I think if they don't let the All Blacks out to a 17-point start, and they stay in that fight, they're one of those teams that will grind you down. They're a fighter. They will grind teams down. I think Duhan Vermeulen, obviously, and the class of Malcolm Marx is, you can't hide from that. So those two kind of have stood out for me. But, I mean, as a team, I think they'll be a little bit disappointed with not the results and not how it's kind of gone, but just the way that they're building to the World Cup. I think they would rather be further ahead than they are now. They are still definitely one of the top four teams, definitely going to this World Cup with a very good chance of winning it. On to the team that came third, Los Pumas, Argentina. 1 from 3, a famous victory in Australia, in Sydney at Parramatta in round 2. Just about a famous victory against the Springboks. Probably feel like they let themselves down with leaving 8 points from goal kicking out. Boffelli not playing makes it really interesting. I think he's pretty much cemented that he'll be starting in any major game that they have. Obviously, very disappointing start to the Rugby Championship for Argentina, 43-12 to the All Blacks. Getting blown off the field at home, never good. Bounced back really well and finished off really well. I think we'll go in with a lot of confidence, especially since they didn't have Marcos Kremer, who I think is solidifies and really shows what Argentina is all about and what Argentina is as a team. Defensively, he structures them. Offensively, he runs hard. He is going to make a big difference when he gets back on the field. Was out this Rugby Championship due to a suspension. Conceded 94 points throughout the Rugby Championship and 67 points scored. So obviously weighed out a little bit, and they'll be a little bit disappointed about that. But what I did enjoy from them is each week their defence got better. So the first game it was 43 points. Then they conceded 31 to finally finish at 22. I think that shows some improvement, especially going into South Africa. And, each game arguably got harder. I know they were playing the All Blacks first up, and you'd say that's the hardest one, but they had the All Blacks at home, All Blacks at the travel, and so they'll be disappointed they let 43 points there. Then they had to travel to Australia, then travel to South Africa, do it in South Africa. I think that will I guess, impress and have hopes up for this World Cup. And I'll say this, Argentina base themselves now off that performance in Christchurch last year where they beat the All Blacks. If they can defensively hold you and just tick over that scoreboard, and they would have done this against South Africa had Boffelli been playing, they will win games. So, yeah, Rugby World Cup, the pool they're in, they've got a very, very good chance of getting through. The Wallabies. Oh, where do we start with Eddie Jones and the Wallabies? Look, 0 from 3, disappointing. They will definitely be disappointed about that. I don't think Eddie would have thought that they were in this much of a position, but they are. And we can see the work to do when we look at their tallies of points. 50 points scored, which is just not enough. You need to be scoring at least 20 points a game to be beating these Rugby Championship teams. And then 105 points conceded is just not good enough either. You can't be conceding more than 30 plus points per game if you want to win these games. So, look, work on both sides of the ball to do. They definitely lacked creativity and punch against the All Blacks, I will say. They've obviously got the key players and the star players. Korobeti, Karevi and Mark Nawanganitawase are all able to break a game open. We saw it with Marky Mark. We know what Mirik is capable of, and same with Karevi. It just seems like they just haven't been able to get into the right places to do the right things. It's just seemed disjointed at the moment, the attack. But there are a lot of positives, I think. I think if any team can take the most out of the Rugby Championship, it is the Wallabies. What they can do and what they need, I think was put on show for everyone to see. They need a jackler. It showed terribly when Will Skelton is your man who's going to looks most likely to get turnovers in that All Blacks game. They needed a proper number 7. And I don't want to take away from Hooper, Tom Hooper that is, who made 30 tackles but didn't win a single turnover, never looked like winning a turnover. They missed over Hooper or McWright in those situations, I truly believe. I think they've gone in the right direction with Carter Gordon. When he was on the attack, looked a lot better. He obviously was off of his kicking game, and that's such an important part of rugby nowadays that you just can't do that. But his game management and his setup of play, I really, really enjoyed to see. Think it's the right choice. Think he's the right player. Quaid and Nick White didn't do anything when they came on. I like what Tate McDermott also brought. I just think they all need to merge a bit better. Obviously, a couple of devastating pieces of news. Alan Aliatoa looked likely to be an Achilles injury, which will cost him his Rugby World Cup. And then Taniela Tupou as well went down with a rib injury, which I'm hearing could be 8 to 12 weeks, which is putting him on the clock for the Rugby World Cup as well, which is to their strength. We've discussed it a lot on the podcast. You know, Slipper and Bell, Aliatoa and Tupou, that's a dominant rotation that you can bring in. However, there is any team that can turn it around with Eddie Jones at the helm. It can be these Wallabies, and going into a Rugby World Cup, probably with a nicer pool than anyone's got. They will be looking to do some things go in the right direction. So that has been our Rugby Championship for 2023 and Bledisloe all wrapped up in New Zealand's trophy cases. Yes. But for now, that has been us. Let us know your thoughts on the Rugby Championship, the Bledisloe, all that good stuff as we build to a Rugby World Cup. Make sure you subscribe if you do enjoy this content. I will keep you up to date with Rugby Championship, Rugby World Cup, all of that good stuff. Goodbye.